Hey everybody, it's Ron from Ron's Basement. Thank you for joining me today. We will be talking about JCPenney, in particular JCPenney stock. It's a company that I have a keen interest in. I've been following them for about a year. I don't own the stock right now. I want to disclose that. However, I may, in my retirement account, buy a few shares here in the near future. However, I do own the t-shirts. I'm wearing a white Stafford brand JCPenney t-shirt right now, and I also wear the briefs. I think they're referred to as tidy whities. I'm 50 years old. I've been wearing Stafford brand t-shirts for, gosh, probably 40 years, and I like the product. I like JCPenney, and I'm kind of excited about what's going on with the company. So I put together a list of ideas that I have regarding the company, the stock, and what's going on. And I'm going to share them with you now over at my whiteboard. So let's head on over there and I'll show you what I got. Okay, folks, here we are at the whiteboard. Again, we're talking about JCPenney, stock symbol JCP. And I just want to add right here at the very beginning, if you find any of the information that I present to you to be wrong or you disagree, please feel free to correct me or comment. I'm just kind of providing this information to the public, my ideas, but I certainly know that I'm not always exactly right. So to kick things off real quickly, JCPenney, obviously a major retailer, been around a long time. And like many of the older, bigger retailers, Sears, Kmart, a number of the other big ones, they have fallen on hard times. They haven't claimed bankruptcy or crashed to the extent that some of the companies have, but they've definitely fallen on hard times. I looked earlier, I think the stock's all-time high was almost $80 per share. Currently, it's trading around 70 cents per share. So that's quite a magnificent decrease in stock value. However, let's talk about some good things regarding JCPenney. I'm excited about the management team. I would actually give Jill Soltau, the new CEO, who's been in the job for a little over a year, I'm going to give her an A+. She came into a very difficult situation. She has, I sense, kind of steadied the ship, made a lot of changes kind of behind the scenes to kind of right things with the company, decreased inventory, decreased shrinkage. It takes a while for a CEO to come in and kind of assess the situation, and I think she's done a great job of doing that. And I'm very impressed with her and very impressed with her background as well. And there's been some recent appointments to some other senior management, senior executive level roles. And I thought she was really smart at doing that after about the first year. Again, she waited until she kind of came in, got a feel for what was going on, and now a year later, she's hired some very impressive people to take on some of the key roles and areas where the company will be transforming itself. Okay, another thing that I'm very excited about with JCPenney is the fact that insiders own 10% of the company, from what I'm able to discern, and that Jill Soltau, the CEO, alone owns 10 million shares. I believe there's about 300 million shares total outstanding, so that means that Jill owns 3% of the company. That is very significant, and what that means to me is that Jill and the insiders are aligned with the shareholders. They want the same thing that we want. They want the company to succeed, and that will translate into a higher stock price and will be good for the stockholders and the insiders who own a large extent of the company. Again, I can't overemphasize enough. That's always a key thing that I look at, something I get very excited about when I see a company where insiders own such a large percent. All right, well, let's dive into the financials just a little bit. I'm going to look at the BS balance sheet. Does that stand for, does the BS stand for balance sheet or something else? Bull, you know what? Is it a value? Well, on the JCPenney balance sheet, they show $8.7 billion in assets, They have liabilities equal to 7.8 billion total liabilities, and equity of 900 million. That leaves, when you take all the assets, 8.7, you take out what they owe, 7.8, you're left with equity of 900 million. What's interesting is that the market cap of the company is currently just about 200 million. So if you're to believe that they actually have assets worth $8.7 billion, and you take out those liabilities, that 900 million, you can buy it for 200 million essentially. So, every $20 that you put into JCPenney stock, in theory, you're getting $90 worth of assets for that. The key is, are those assets really worth $8.7 billion? They do show $4.5 billion in property, plant, and equipment on their balance sheet. They're an old company, so they own a lot of real estate. And there's some lively discussion surrounding the actual value, the actual market value. Again, this $8.7 billion is book value. That means that's kind of what they paid for it. That could include some assets that they bought 10, 20, 50 years ago that have greatly appreciated, gone up in value, and that's not reflected on the balance sheet. The balance sheet is just purely a book value less depreciation. So it's what they paid whenever they bought it. Could have been 80 years ago, less depreciation. So and I'm not going to issue an opinion on that, but there's a possibility that their assets could actually be worth more than 8.7 billion. However, their assets could also be worth less than 8.7 billion. They own a lot of real estate at dead malls and other areas as well. So potentially the stock at the current price offers a great value, if indeed those assets are worth that much money. So that was my next point. I've already covered that. And again, the key is book value versus market value on those assets. Maybe someone has what they believe to be a more accurate estimate. I'd be interested to hear it. Okay. So the key with JCPenney, in my opinion, is do they have the time and money to renew the company? I think they've got a great management team. I think they've got a plan that we're going to hear about here real soon. I think in early April, they've announced a big kind of media investor event that they're going to do. Just some general thoughts that I have on the company. I think that they could have some success if they position themselves as a high-end Walmart from a housewares perspective, from an apparel perspective. The typical people that go to Walmart to buy their clothes, or Target even to buy their clothes, might be interested in kind of stepping up to a JCPenney. I think that JCPenney has generally more stylish and better quality clothing than, let's say, a Target or a Walmart. And for all the other people, because honestly, I don't buy my clothes at Walmart, but for all the other people, what they can offer is a great value and style for everyone else. That's just my thought on that area. However, I'm certainly not a retail apparel expert. They have a lot of extra space in their stores, and they need to do something with that. This was space that was previously taken up by appliances and furniture. A couple ideas I had for that, and I've seen this idea floated. They could kind of rent the space out to smaller boutique type stores, kind of a store within a store concept. They could build out some meeting rooms and let, community organizations and clubs and whatever use the meeting rooms. They could build out some kind of small classroom type areas and turn it into like a tutoring center. There's a lot of tutoring that goes on. And think about that. If you every week had families bringing their kids in to this space that is now just sitting vacant, and they were being tutored in math for a half hour, What do you think mom's going to do during that time? Mom's going to go shop. And since she's already in JCPenney, maybe, maybe she'll buy a few things from JCPenney. Another idea is to kind of use that space, sublease it for kind of entertainment. I think I read somewhere there was a company in one of these malls that used their entertainment or their extra space, like to put in kind of like a entertainment zone for families. So something with this vacant space to bring people in. I think my tutoring center idea is the best, but nobody really asked. So, and then quickly I'll talk about, I live in St. Louis. I'll talk about the two stores that I've visited many times recently and I'm most familiar with. The first is West County Center. That is probably the busiest mall in St. Louis. And folks, St. Louis is a big city. There's a good amount of money here. It's a mall that is very busy, upper middle class clientele. And JCPenney has a anchor store, a massive 2-story anchor store at the end of that mall. I would give that store a B-C+ at best. It's huge. It's got a lot of empty space. It needs to be refreshed, but it's like prime real estate in St. Louis. So I actually, last time I was there, was walking around, and the store manager, or one of the store managers, was walking somebody around the store, and I introduced myself and told her I was somebody that follows the stock and has owned it from time to time, and she was very enthusiastic about JCPenney and Jill. By the way, I asked her about Jill, and she was impressed that I knew who Jill Soltau was, and she had very positive things to say about what was going on with JCPenney, although that's what you would expect. The second store is the O'Fallon, Missouri store. Now that's a further out suburb, kind of middle class, upper middle class area. That is not a store that's in a mall, but I would say it's a newer store. If I had to guess, I'd say maybe somewhere between 10 and 15 years old. It sits amongst an area where there's like a Target and an Applebee's restaurant. It's a freestanding one-story store, not a part of a mall, but it's a really nice store. I mean, every time I go there, I kind of walk out enthusiastic about JCPenney. It is well organized. It's newer. There's not as much empty space within that store, and it's generally very busy. So anyhow, that about wraps it up. My final thought is, I do think that somebody will survive. These people that used to go to Sears and that used to go to Kmart and some of the other big retailers, somebody's going to survive. And I'm really, I'll just tell you, I get a really good feeling about Jill Soltau and what she's doing with the company. So I wouldn't be surprised if JCPenney survives. It is a risky investment. It's one of those deals where you could, at 70 cents a share, 3 years from now, it could be worth nothing. It could be worth half as much, or it could be worth 10 times as much. So you really have to weigh the risk involved and keep a close eye on it. But I'm rooting for JCPenney. I think Jill and her team can do it, and I guess we'll see how it all plays out. But thank you for, if you've suffered through this entire video, I appreciate you watching, and I wish you luck and have a great day.